there. And you talked about giving. You talked about giving in terms of just not just time, but also of monetary wealth. Now, using that as a tool of good, obviously it's important to have some level of financial literacy, and financial literacy being something that we can learn either just from examples in our life, like our parents, siblings, mentors, but also through educational streams and our profession. Now, your background, and you mentioned this, is a tech background, and you are a chartered professional accountant. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey from coming from a background in finance to now running an association, an advocacy association for engineers, and how that skill set has transitioned and has accentuated and helped you in the role that you have today?
Yeah, so I can tell you that when my degree is in engineering, and that's where I practiced for the first 10 years of my career. And there's some basic finance principles that we study in engineering, but I think most of us looked at it as something we had to do to get our degree and didn't really think that it applied to us. But as I've experienced a number of different companies in a number of different ways, I think that every person at a company, regardless of what your role is, should have a basic understanding of how a business earns revenue and makes profit, if that's your objective, or at least doesn't have a deficit if you're a not-for-profit. And as leaders, again, another responsibility we have is to support the team by sharing at a very high level how we do this, how we earn and spend, without using jargon and spreadsheets and things like that. And so at some point in my career, I recognized that my understanding of how business decisions were being made, how financial decisions were being made, it was not great. And so I sought some mentorship initially to help me understand and perhaps take away some, as a technical person, often you have an idea of how things happen. And of course, I think the joke about engineers is that there was a joke that I heard that what's the difference between a lawyer and an engineer? It's that the lawyer knows that they're not an engineer. Engineers think that we think that we know everything, and clearly we do not, because there's a need for diversity in the way that we work. So I sought some mentorship. I ended up moving into a finance role without any financial education. And so I sought that education. I went and completed the Certified Management Accounting program at the time, which is now integrated into the Chartered Professional Accounting. So, you gain that credibility and understanding, sometimes through experience, sometimes through education. I picked education because that was the right route for me at that time. And that combination of sort of the technical understanding that I had in engineering and the education that I had through the CMA program, that gave me a bit of a different perspective, but also a real appreciation for what it's like to try and figure things out without understanding the complex language of finance. Financial people and accountants speak in their own language. It might as well be Latin if you don't understand it. And so education is a mechanism for helping out. And I think today how that serves me is that I don't fear things like budgeting and reporting. I enjoy that sort of thing. You and I have had conversations about reserve planning and philosophy on how to make investments and what's the right turnover appropriate for different kinds of businesses. I love that sort of stuff. I love digging into the numbers and working through scenarios. But taking that step back and saying, I serve a group of people. I serve as an advocate for them. And so I can take that knowledge and understanding and turn it into a component of our advocacy. That understanding of business helps me have conversations, for instance, with government about policy decisions that may impact a firm's ability to operate profitably and offer good jobs to people in their communities. I can couch discussion of risk management in terms of, how a portfolio is managed and how decisions can be made that will lead to industry consolidation or a firm choosing not to participate in something because the risk is simply too high for them. So I think it's really benefited me, but at the same time, I know how much hard work it is to be a real accountant. I don't consider myself a real accountant, and so what I really try and do is make sure that the real accountants can do their jobs, and my job is to help to interpret, understand, come up with ideas, but without fear that can sometimes exist for people who don't really have that understanding.